Bow, wow, 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 wow. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. That was, of course, my brand new intro based on feedback from last lesson. You guys said we needed to go cooler, so I've added a bit more funk this time. Now, today I've got something interesting for you. I'm pretty sure I can hear the groans from here. We're going to be looking at simple interest, and that's about it for today. So yeah, simple interest is going to be the focus of our lesson. Now, interest has been around for a long time, and it is a huge part of the economy. Without loans from banks and things like that, a lot of people wouldn't be able to purchase things like cars, houses, and start new businesses, just as a few examples. And so the idea of interest is that people can borrow money from some sort of an institution, but these institutions don't just give money out because they feel like it's the nice thing to do. They do it to make a profit for themselves. And so in order to borrow this money, you have to pay an extra amount of money for that right. And the way interest works is that the longer you take to pay it back, the more that you're going to have to pay in total. So in particular, this is a huge way of how banks in particular make their money. But banks aren't the only people that loan money. There's all different sorts of financial institutions, and I'm sure you've seen the ads on telly of quick personal loans and all these sorts of things. However, interest isn't exclusively for the banks. It's not just something that we're on the raw end of the deal of. In fact, as I'm sure a lot of you know, we can benefit from interest as well by putting money into bank accounts. And essentially, what we're doing is we're leaving our money in the care of the bank. They use it in their own special way. It's still our money. But for the right for them to use it, we accrue interest. So that's money that we make. Now, something that I just wanted to talk about before we got into all of this simple interest stuff is often people suggest that people should not take loans out if they can be avoided. But the point that I'm trying to make today is that, yes, loans can mean that you have to pay quite a large sum of money, but I wouldn't say that they're necessarily bad. What's more important is that when we're talking about loans, that you understand exactly what it is that's happening when you take out a loan. And you've just got to understand that essentially what you'll be doing is that you will be paying more money, and sometimes it's significantly more money if we're talking about something like a house. But it means that we can access things like goods and services that we previously wouldn't have had enough money for. But the most important thing above all is that we need to live within our means. So what I mean by that is, don't buy a $60,000 car if you can't afford the $350 weekly payments. So hopefully by the end of this lesson, you have a bit of an understanding of what simple interest is, how we apply it mathematically, and also just that loans aren't necessarily a bad thing. They're a way that we, as I said, we can access goods and services that otherwise we wouldn't really be able to. But we have to understand what we're signing up for. So, our heading for today will be simple interest. And I wanted to start off with a few notes. So we might jot down some of those things that we were talking about previously. And we'll say interest has been around for a long time. and it is a big part of the economy. So the idea behind interest is that people can take loans but the people or institutions that lend this money make a profit on lending out this money. Now, the last little thing that I wanted to jot down is sometimes interest works in our favour. And an example of that is leaving money in the bank. Alright, so from here, the next thing I wanted to do was I just wanted to run over a little bit of terminology. So I want you to put a subheading, terminology. So the first word we're going to look at is principal. Now when we're talking about interest and taking loans and investing money and all these sorts of things, the principal, which we call P, capital P, is the initial amount of money. So the initial amount of money invested, borrowed, etc. Next up, interest, which is a capital I. So the interest is how much extra you have to pay for the right to use that money or to borrow that money. Of course, if we're talking about investing money and interest is working in your favour, that's how much money you have added to your principal. So when we're talking about interest working in our favour, just keep in mind that we're talking about investing it into a bank account or investing it into a business or something like that. Next up, we've got our interest rate. With our interest rate, we use a little r. So it is the rate, and then in brackets we're going to say the percentage that dictates how much interest is paid. Typically, when we're talking about an interest rate, we express this as some percent per annum, with per annum being represented as PA, and it means per year. And the last one I want to talk about, and this one's pretty self-explanatory, is time. We express this with a T. So the time is the time period that our loan or our investment runs over between when it's settled. The important thing about the value we use for our time, T, is that it must reflect the time period that the interest is added over. So for example, if R is expressed as a percentage per month, then our T needs to be in months. If we're dealing with a rate per annum and interest is added yearly, then our time has to reflect that, and it also has to be yearly. So I've said it must reflect the time period that interest is added. For example, if R is a percentage per month, then T must be in months. If interest is added yearly, then T must be years. Now, something I wanted to talk about pretty briefly is that when we're talking about interest, there are two types of interest. So we have simple interest we also have compound interest. Now with compound interest, we're going to look into what it is a little bit more in a future lesson, but for now we're just going to be looking at simple interest. And the rules that we're interested in non-intended pun by the way, is that for simple interest, the interest is equal to the principal times the rate times the time. And when we're trying to work out the final value of our loan or whatever it might be, it is equal to the principal added with the interest. Alright, so from here, I think we might do a worked example. So we're going to be dealing with worked example 7. So for this worked example, we're going to say we've got a company and they're looking for investors, and they come across an investor who offers to invest $15,000 into their business, which will be paid back to the investor over the period of 5 years with a 9% per annum simple interest rate. And we want to calculate the value of the investment at the end of 5 years. So let's write that out. That's a 5, by the way. A $15,000 investment. So the agreement is the company will pay back the $15,000 over a period of 5 years with simple interest added at a rate of, we'll say 9% per annum. And we want to calculate the value of the investment after the 5 years. Now, whenever we're going through and doing a question like this, I always like to go through and write out what each of our variables are going to be. So our principal is $15,000. Our rate is 9%, which we can also write as 0.09 when we write it as a decimal. And our T is a period of 5 years. Now remember, we need to make sure that our rate and our time match up. We're talking about a rate per annum. T is in years, so we're all good. All right. First thing we're going to do is we are going to calculate how much interest the company needs to pay to the investor. So the interest, using our rule, is P times R times T, PRT, we will have $15,000 times by a rate of 0.09 times by 5. You put that in your calculator and you will get 15,000 times by 0.09 times by 5 is 6,750. Now it's important to realize in this particular question, we haven't yet answered the question because we needed to find the value of the investment after 5 years. What we've found so far is the interest that needs to be paid back to the investor. So from here, we know that our company needs to pay the original $15,000 that they've borrowed plus an extra $6,750. So the value of this loan or this investment for the investor will be $15,000 plus $6,750, which ultimately comes out at an answer of $21,750. Now that is our final answer. So, therefore, the value of the investment after 5 years is $21,750. So our next worked example looks at a different situation. So this is worked example 8. So for worked example 8, our question reads, Bingara Big Bucks Bank has a savings account offering 3% per annum. If Cody leaves $900 in the account for 4 months, how much will he have in his account? So, let's write that out. Bingara Big Bucks Bank has a savings account offering 3% per annum. If Cody leaves $900 in the account for 4 months, how much will he have in his account? Alright, so first thing we're going to do, same as last time, is we're going to go and we're going to define all of our variables. So P is our principal. So this is the amount that Cody's put into the bank account, which is $900. Our R. Now, we have to do a little bit of maths here because we have a 3% per annum rate, but we've got to break it down into months because when we look at T, our T is in 4 months. A unit is months. So we have to divide our rate by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. And when we simplify this, we're going to have 1/4%. It's important to keep our percent. Now this is per month. So if we have a look at this, we have a look at this, they're the same, and we like that. So we need to have it all match up. Now, personally, I recommend that when you're putting in your interest rate, I would use this whole thing, 1/4%. The percent's very important. But if you prefer operating in a decimal, this would be 0.25% per month, which when we get rid of the percent sign, we move our decimal place 2 to the left. So it would be 0.0025. It's the same as dividing by 100 per month. So this 1/4% and the 0.0025, they're essentially the same number. It's up to you which one you want to use. I'm going to use 1/4%. So to calculate our interest, we write out our rule. Interest equals PRT. Our principal is $900. Our rate is 1/4%. And our T is 4. So when I put this in my calculator, I'm going to put in 900 times by, hit the fraction button, 1/4% times 4. And what you'll get an answer is, $9. Now very quickly, I'm just going to check that I've told you how to put that in your calculator properly. So 1/4, then the percent just to the right hand side of it, times by 4 is $9. Alright, Cody, make sure not to spend that all at once. So interest equals PRT. To find the value of the account or the amount in our account, it is going to be our interest plus our principal, which is $9 plus our initial amount, which was $900. So Cody would have in his account $909. So therefore, after 4 months, Cody would have $909. Alright, so that wraps up our first little video. I'm going to be uploading another one shortly, which will be on simple interest graphs. But make sure you go away, have a bit of a practice, make sure you understand these questions. Any questions, don't hesitate to send me a message. Alright, thanks guys.